Hey there, and welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the nonsense and the bullshit in our backyard, and hopefully this will inspire you to do the same. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, along with always,
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Maybooty.
and today we're going to be talking about a dueling concept, really. We're going to talk about strongmen concepts and how they are not handy, no matter what way you look at it. And we're going to use a local example, Eric Suher, prominent businessman, landlord, real estate mogul. I refer to him as Mr. Burns. So if you think of Mr. Burns in The Simpsons, not only does he control the power plant, he has his fingers in a lot of business. Funny, there's even a joke in the Homer Palooza episode, probably season 6 or 7, where they make a joke about Ticketmaster, and this is in the '90s. Talking about Ticketmaster, Mr. Burns bought controlling stake in Ticketmaster, and he makes a joke about how nobody's going to pay service fees, and he's mocking his assistant Smithers. So in a lot of ways, Eric Suher, though he doesn't own stake in Ticketmaster, he does own many music venues, and definitely it's called the Iron Horse Entertainment Group, and they own multiple venues, and has really, you ask any working musician, they really don't like dealing with him, and he's really done a lot to damage that industry locally on the small working musician front. He's also ruined many bars. He has a monopoly of liquor licenses, specifically in Northampton, but also I believe in Holyoke, or he's originally from Holyoke, so he's a native, but he has property all the way up and down the 91 corridor. And, he's a problem. And how does this relate to bigger things? Well, in the sense that Eric Sewer doesn't get to where he is alone. So when the media or people in the business community or a politician throw their hands up when there are storefronts that Eric Sewer owns that he refuses to rent at a reasonable rate, and for whatever reason, we can't read his, we don't know what his motivation is. We can't assume, he's never said what his motivation is. But he has many lawsuits against him, employment lawsuits. So he's a wage theft. He's admitted to it. That he's done wage theft amongst other issues. There's lots of documentation for this, and he's an ardent back the blue supporter. So that's where he crosses our front. And how does this tie into being a strong man like Trump? Well, because even with the bad man, after, if we can all agree that, oh, this guy's bad, then we all just focus our energies on how he's bad, not the things enabling him, not the people that align with him. Like, it should be a red flag that the police have a one-to-one relationship to him in Northampton, that Jody Casper and he have direct contact with one another, and that she's very willing to jump. And there's documentation for this reported by the Shoestring about 2 years ago, in wake of George Floyd protesting. He was concerned about his property. So, anyways, that's my little spiel, and we'll tie this into how this factors into bigger strongmen, all the way down to the mustache man, Hitler himself. And it's convenient to have a strong man, even when we've toppled the strong man, because it lets everybody else off the hook. That's why it's important to not only point out the biggest problems, but it's also, there's plenty of people in the system that are helping him out. So Joanna, please, like, I have my meant to spiel, so, like, take it over. You've had different experience with Mr. Sewer.
I feel like most people, I think, who are working class, who live in this area, once you realize that the downtown of Northampton is controlled like Mass Land Directory, this man owns a lot, and the Iron Horse Entertainment Group encompasses at least 3 venues downtown in Northampton. Is that
Well,
right? Is that right, Spence? And then there's also
Pearl
he
Street
also Pearl Street, Iron Horse, and Calvin. The Calvin.
did buy Divas and shut it down, which was a dance club.
Yeah. Okay. So and I used to go there for years. So
He also has a facility named the Basement, which is across the street from the Green Room, which is another bar he owns, or part owns, or owns the building, or owns the liquor license and rents it out. I don't know.
oh,
All
the basement is him too.
basement was him until recently. And as of last I checked, he had the basement in the green room too, which is right next to the police station. So that's where he has literal property that abuts the police station and shares a parking lot with even. And it makes sense that he would have reached out to Chief Casper during civil unrest, because hey, they're mad at you, and my buildings are right next to you, and they were assured that they would do everything in the police's power to make sure nothing happened to his property, as much as happened to their property, because they're neighbors and they're in the struggle together against the working people. He owns the Mountain View, the wow,
Mountain Park. Yeah.
which is in Holyoke. Um, used to be an amusement park way back when, and it became like a music venue. It's kind of like an outdoor. It's like a hill basically. They set up a. It's nice, but it's he basically bought it, and since he's bought it, he's only put on a handful of concerts, and it's been like 5 years. He also bought the
Yeah.
golf club too, so like he's literally diversified in all this property up and down the 91 corridor, and basically there's no competition.
Well, yeah, and the thing that sucks is like for me, I actually completely understand. So this sparked my interest. He comes up for me, every time I think of like, oh, what's happening in Northampton or what's happening here and why isn't there something in that space? And I usually assume like it's the landlord, because if you really cared about the community and wanted to do good things, you would be making good deals with people who want to do things. And I truly believe there are a number of people that probably would want to rent in downtown Northampton, but the prices are very high. He could decide, okay, so I'm going to give people a break to bring industry to this town. But instead, he literally not only lets the buildings decay to the point of, I mean, I know the pandemic stopped the music from happening, but before it happened, I did go to shows when I lived in downtown Northampton from 2013 through 2018 and throughout my adult life. And he has just let those venues continually decay. And so instead of keeping up these beautiful buildings in a downtown that had at one time a beautiful, really vibrant area where people could go and it was a safe place for people from marginalized communities, which it's still that type of town, but there aren't as many places to go. So I've heard even that music people in the industry before he shut down for the pandemic didn't even want to come and play. Like some people didn't even want to come and play anymore. So the recent article that sparked my interest said like, okay, well, he hasn't even opened any of them back up since people have started going out again. And
Sitting on like that nobody
yeah,
else
so
can
he's
use.
sitting on, well,
Like,
and space.
both the liquor license and the properties are finite resources in a place where new development, like in New England, new development just
Right.
doesn't happen for a lot of reasons, and bad, and rezoning and all that stuff. There's good reason for it, whether it's environmental, ecological, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't matter. The point is, he has something that is high in demand, and he's sitting on it. He's playing some sort of shell game.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
want to
know what,
accuse him of
yeah, I don't know
crimes.
what game I like to accuse him of, but I agree. It's just,
Seem like even from a bad guy sense, it doesn't seem to make any sense. So it's very possible he's just making decisions that don't make sense. It's possible. I mean, white men fail upward all the time. So like, let's not rule that out. I don't think he's got a master plan. I don't even want to give him credit for that. But like, it seems to me there must be some sort of shell game going on, because there's no other realistic explanation to why he keep businesses empty, and it's not like he himself is a restaurateur and doesn't want anybody else to be able to be a restaurateur. It just seems like he wants to hoard this thing that's in demand. I don't know. It just seems like some dragon behavior.
no, it does seem like that. And then when you find out, so that alone is bad. But then you find out this guy, when he does have a business running, he has like wage theft issues with like 30 or 75 employees, depending on the year. So there's two different links to articles that I'll share where Mr. Suher just decided that, or must have had accounting, I'm sure. Whatever happened, he had to end up go to court, lose the case, pay settlements. So he's also criming while calling the police on people who are going to hurt his properties.
Kind of threatening to be like, you're not going to let anything happen, right? Like, it's like the same threat she was on the general public. Like, hey, I help I make sure you get the stuff you want. I'm the one who strong arms the local government into funding your militia because your militia protects me. So like keep that in mind. They answer to property holder. Period. So if he owns the property, regardless if he's good or bad, why does he? Yeah, like why does he have a double standard? And then the politicians, the
Completely.
activists, the local business, then they get to wash their hands clean because like, oh, he's just a bad guy. He's out of control. It's like, yo, you all have collective power. Like I've worked in many establishments that don't particularly love Eric Suher for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
a lot of people in this area don't.
Everybody talks mad shit, but never stands up to him in any way, never challenges him, never tries to outcompete him. I don't even know. I don't even know. Like, nobody's even willing to, like, address the elephant in the room. And from the employment shenanigans that he's accused of in these lawsuits, I can tell you anecdotally what I know he's done over the years, having gone to college at UMass and known people that work the door and done. Those are like
Right.
cash gigs. Those are like, those aren't W-2 jobs. Those are, at the end of the day, you get $80 cash, right? So what he would end up doing, and I'm sure he's 1099ing them or whatever, and then fudging the numbers on his end to make it look good, whatever he's got to do. But what he would do is, it'd be going good. You'd be getting paid. Gig after gig. And then, at some point, because he knows most of these workers are transient, they're college students. They don't have roots here. They're just trying to get their drinking money and their rent money, and they're mortgaging out their future on their student loans. That's like what the society in Western Mass is like for the students, right? So he'd take advantage of these transient workers, and then just like he'd be paying them, and then a couple gigs in a row. Oh, we'll get you next time. Oh, we'll get you next time. Then they never call you back, and you there is never next time, and you're back. So it's like these little microcosms that I'm sure aren't even part of these class action
Well, yeah, like
lawsuits.
the
Because
Divas
like,
example that you mentioned earlier, I know a lot of staff at Divas that actually were like for life or like service workers. So the fact that he came in, bought that, and then crushed it, like Sally, I know I don't remember her last name right now, but shout out to her. She bartended at Gateway City Arts after they closed because she had just that was her gig. Like, so I feel like he displaces people left and right in terms of stuff like that. And withholding money from a group of workers.
in the grand scheme of things, it's paper cuts, it's microaggressions, really. And then it's like, are you gonna spend your time and mental effort going after $150? No, you're just not gonna work from that guy again. But he has a new pool to hire from.
Exactly.
New pool. It's taking advantage of the transient nature of a college area. And it's wrong because he's also taking advantage of inexperienced workers, people that aren't keen or aware of these tactics. And people have been talking about Eric Suher I knew him who he was as a line
Oh,
cook.
yeah.
Like, come on, that's weird.
Well, because he
Weird.
bought up
That's
a
weird.
lot of,
Why?
or if he probably inherited it. Honestly, I can't remember now. It's probably a combination, but in the 90s, he had like a majority. When you look at the land records for the state, it goes back to the early 90s.
And the other thing that's like pretty crazy to think about. So I've worked in restaurants. I've sold food to restaurants and markets. Excuse me. But I also, when I briefly worked in 9 to 5 office life, the office building I worked in was owned and managed by Eric Suher.
Yeah, that's the thing. In this area, if you find out he owns a building, it's like,
I've literally been under this dude's thumb in some capacity, whether I know it or not. Like half the places I frequent are probably partially owned or owned by him. He just owns so many things, and it's really a bummer because it also he's such an evil ghoul, and like his public statements are so callous and rude. Like you can look up his statements through his PR people over the years because he's gotten some flack, and rightfully so for lots of different things. From everything from like, yo, you're hoarding these liquor licenses, you're monopolizing these. That they tried to expand the liquor licensing, they did, but it still didn't really loosen him up at all. Like Divas is still closed, for example. Like, and I'm pretty sure there's a liquor license attached to that.
yeah, no, in the green room, he basically closed that down recently. But you're right,
Well,
like that,
mutinies at the green room too. There's been multiple mutinies of staff, which is
yes.
crazy. And some of them he hired back, and then they mutinied again. It's just, and then there's the question I People need money and like to give people second chances, but to those people that went and worked for him a second time after you successfully, literally, when I say mutiny, I mean mutiny. Like they all literally said, "We quit" in unison. It doesn't happen, guys.
But
Like
hiring them back too, like that's just an abusive relationships all around.
so red flag, and it's such a bummer, and it's like over peanuts. These are literally these jobs don't make a lot of money. And
Mm,
no, 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 no.
bartending, I did make a lot of money.
It's not a guaranteed wage. It's just not.
No, but I mean, I did make a lot of money bartending when it was busy and in cities. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
Like
but
people would say to me, like, you can't have that be your job. And it's like, there are some bartenders out there that would be like offended if we didn't acknowledge that, like, that can be your job. Do you know what I mean?
I don't mean like I meant I to clarify. Let me actually rewind. I mean in comparison to the owners, you're
Oh,
making.
yeah, not even close, but it's not like terrible compared to other like minimum wage jobs, say.
So yeah, don't enable. I'm just saying it bums me out enabling a dude you know has done you wrong,
For sure.
and that's my advice to my fellow workers. No, I didn't mean that. Yes, bartenders can and should, and every service worker it should be a living wage. Like it should. It's a skill. Y'all, there's a reason y'all can't do it, and there's a reason a lot of people only do it for a little time because it takes a very special combination of skills and also poverty because you have to have no other choice to stay in that job.
That's what I
It's
mean. They might have gone back because, like, in all honesty, the jobs now are so limited for food service.
just to clarify, I did not mean it like that. I
I
meant
know you
more
didn't, but I just think they might have gone back. If I think back to my times where, like, and you know too, thinking back.
money, and that's really the problem. He's still like he's not open, and somehow he's still making money. Like make that make sense. Like then, if capitalism makes sense, why storefront with nothing in it and still make money?
So who's granting him the licenses for these businesses? I guess that would be the state. But I
And who?
want the state. Like I'm wondering at what level like he needs to like does he have to go to like city councilors in Holyoke or in well Holyoke he probably owns stuff too. Holyoke or Northampton and like ask to open these businesses or you know what I mean? So like I just feel like the towns I know that the towns probably have tried talking to him and they can only do so much within the like confines of enforcement because it is his property, but I don't think I would make it easy for him to do or open a business at this point either, I guess. But I don't know if he'd sell and then it's that's why he's so awful because then the town is basically caught in this place where I don't know what I would do, honestly, because I don't know what they can do. But I do wonder if he's paying taxes on all the properties, so I want to pull all of those records. I couldn't find him on the lists that are available in the state, but I feel like if you're someone that would engage in wage theft, you'd probably also not pay your taxes. So,
Oh, absolutely. And but this kind of ties into our usual talking point in the sense like all this dude has done is been nothing but a drag on our community, and yet we spend so much money harassing homeless people, drug afflicted folk, um, people that have just been traumatized by whatever you think of war, poverty, immigration, asylum, all those things that are traumatizing. We spend a ton of money throwing them in cages and just moving them from place to place, just moving them. But meanwhile, it's like we can't spend any resources on this. We can't spend money on the building department making sure that his buildings are up to code. We can't spend money on and like I'm not I'm sure libertarians listening, libertarian minded people are like, why are you talking about spending more money on the government? Whatever, we're spending money on the government. Let's just pretend that we're not going to take the money away. Let's just pretend that we're going to fucking reallocate it. People like you know, like I just don't. We can't just turn it all off today or tomorrow. But what we could do is we could just move money where it belongs to start. And one good place to start is just do this criming out in the open. I mean, the Attorney General of Massachusetts is looking into it, like according to a headline. Like, what does that mean? And like, I'm glad they're not like publicizing. They shouldn't be like, we're going after so and so. The AG should be doing that, making a big scene. That means they don't have a case. The more you do talking in public and less in courtrooms means you don't have a case. So I want to see the litigation. I want to see the paperwork. But we know that weirdly, the strongman, this is what prevents our criminal justice system from getting anything done, and not having a two-tiered system of justice. It's a lot easier and cheaper to go after little people and get convictions and make it look airtight, right? It's harder with these other people because of political considerations, because of ties to judges and recusals and whatever variable you want to come up with. There's a reason Donald Trump isn't held accountable for the last 40 years for his random shit. Same reason Eric Suher isn't. And then we get to throw our hands up in the air and say, look, see, electoralism is broken. The strongmen really, like, it's important to bring these bad actors out and shame them and call it the behavior and not enable the behavior anymore. But it's also dangerous because it becomes orange man bad, orange man not in the office anymore. We're all good now. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Like, no way.
People like, look, Nazism, Hitler dead, therefore Nazism dead too. It's like, nope, not at
No.
all. Nazis are still very much around. Unfortunately, I know maybe that sounds glib to some people listening, but no, they're around. They're around.
Yeah, they are around. I mean, I'm sorry. There are KKK members too throughout the state who probably just, it's like a crossover. I don't know the Venn diagram for Nazi versus,
outright identify with being a Nazi,
they
but they
might.
can agree with a lot of things the Nazis said. Like, you ever hear about people controlling the banks and a new world order? Well, that's a Jewish conspiracy, so therefore you're repeating a Nazi thing. So just keep that in mind, everybody. uh, think in big, broad terms. If it's big and broad and hateful, it's probably a Nazi thing at its roots. And it's crazy how many things in America are very sympathetic to Nazis when you put it through that lens. But we also, as much as it's important to call out strongmen and the problem folk, it can tend to be like, okay, we solved that person passes away or goes away from decent society, whatever gets dealt with. Then we go, okay, problem gone. No, the system created this. System enabled this behavior.
So
Trump,
exactly.
all the way up to Trump. So just saying if we deal with this one thing, it's all good. We don't have to deal with it anymore. It's like, no, their system is inherently corrupt. It creates these things. It's really unfortunate. I don't have all the solutions to fix it. Some people have other solutions. That's up to us to come together as communities to do that.
I think I'm thankful for the journalists and the workers who stood up to Eric Suher because it seems like that's the loudest voice. I just was like looking at something quickly while we were going back and forth, Spence, and there's like a 2012, 2013 wage theft thing. It goes back. So for Suher, just like an example, like in 2011, 2012, he was sued by the Theatrical Stage Employees Union and had complaints. And like there was an informal settlement that ended up resolving it, I guess, before they moved on. But he was bad faith negotiating with the actors. So, I mean, it probably could go back farther. But apparently NEPR did a story back then. And the Valley Advocate, which is no longer with us, covered stuff. So I feel like I'm thankful that there are people trying to hold him accountable. I just don't know I don't know the powers that mayors have. And I know it's hard when you're talking about someone's property. But I do think that when someone's, like you said, like at least the building department, like shouldn't the buildings at least have to be up to code? Things like that.
And I know we're focusing on government entities right in this podcast right now because there are supposedly systems in place to help keep things like this in check.
Right.
So we want to encourage using those systems, but also let's not forget that the government isn't necessarily going to solve all our problems. And this is why I mentioned earlier why it bums me out that other business owners who all have their like little informal cliques, right, amongst all the small business owners in Northampton. It's not a conspiracy theory. I've managed businesses in Northampton. It's a thing, and it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It means that it's community. Now, is it bad in the sense that they may or may not be not thinking about their workers and only thinking about their interests? I can't assume that. I'm not in these groups, right? But I would assume that's probably what they're concerned about, their own interests. So if that's true, Eric Suher's hurting their economy.
That's the thing.
So why aren't y'all we if we could unite the petite bourgeoisie and the workers in this particular situation, this is a bonding experience. Like this man is the problem with capitalism. Like this man in this system, this is the logical conclusion of this system. This is what happens. And this one person, and then y'all get to use your trope of it's human nature. There's always going to be one person that ruins it for everybody, so we may as well all be awful. And this is the problem with the strong man, whether it's because you need a strong man to fix all your problems or you need a strong man to blame all your problems on. And it takes all the onus off all the real estate agents, the police department, the mayor, the council, the other business owners that look the other way or are colluding with him. Again, like we don't have any hard proof. We just have our anecdotal evidence from working in this community. And, you know, we see who owns these buildings and these businesses. We see that there's a consolidation of power. And some of these guys don't like people like Eric Suher. So I don't understand why they just let it happen. It's crazy to me. And so support businesses that support other businesses. The fact that this guy doesn't seem interested in that and he just seems interested in hoarding is a red flag. Like that's problematic antisocial behavior. It's not pro-social. It's antisocial. So, you know, I mean, and it gets my goat that he also, though Chief Casper in Northampton, well, let's disclaimer, Joanna and I and other members of our abolitionist community have had conversations with Chief Casper.
Mm-hmm.
They're a very approachable human being.
Mm-hmm.
Cop, still complicit. And I'm not saying they're purposely favoring Eric Suher. I won't accuse them of that because they have given us some space to talk. They're just humoring us.
Oh,
But it does bum me out that it's very clear through public records requests that the business interests have weighted preference. It's very clear. Like it's almost like when we get our audience with people like Chief Casper, it's almost like they're being benevolent. I'm giving you my time to let you gripe, air it out, you know?
mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, they take Eric Suher's concerns about his windows very, 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 very seriously because they're also concerned about their windows because for some reason windows matter more than human lives, which I'll never understand, but that's capitalism, people. So I guess at the end of the day, it's like it's important to call out Eric Suher, and anytime we can, you know, let everybody know who this guy is that's killed music in the Western Mass and the Connecticut River Valley, that's a big reason for it. So it's not just Ticketmaster; it's people like him.
Yeah, and there are some awesome like music venues in other towns. It's just he specifically stopped it in Northampton, especially. I know there's still the Academy and the Parlor Room. The Parlor Room's a smaller of a venue. So I think it just really sucks that one person can control
And
literally how a town is doing, like economically, kind of.
as simple as this is not having shows in a place like Northampton that has had an economy of doing that means less business for the bars, less business for the restaurants, less revenue for parking for the city,
Staying at
less
the hotels. I mean, the Hotel Northampton.
diversity of people coming through because of diverse acts coming through. That's supposed to be a hallmark of a place like Northampton. They love claiming diversity, and there is an element of diversity in Northampton. Now, does it have its problems just like every other community? Sure, but overall, it's a very accepting community and a haven. Like you know, back in the day, you could see at Pearl Street, you could see some punk folk band, you could see Wu Tang, like you could
Yeah.
see Method Man. You could also see I don't know, just like some '80s, you know, guitar. You could see Buckethead, the guitar, like the you know, he's kind of a weirdo, new wave metal virtuoso guitar player. But you could like there is an economy for all these musicians in a place like Western Mass, and it's really unfortunate that it's all in this one man's assets, and he is pithing it away for whatever reason. And it's like I would love to sign motive, but you know, I guess we'll go Occam's razor. He's just a dude with money failing upwards. I mean, it's probably the simplest way, but our system enables that. And that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's the problem for me.
So it's like we don't even have to paint him as an evil man.
No.
It just matters that his business practices are antisocial and they're hurting the community, and other people could, and everybody's just pointing around, well, the government doesn't do anything. So then the business is like, well, the government won't do anything. So why should I? And it's like, well, you should because it's hurting you. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And like I
And
do hate to use the government against him, but like they would come after us
well,
for
they
like
do.
yeah, so like I'm just saying like some of his buildings are in such disarray that it's like Iron Horse last time I went was horrible. No,
Well,
Pearl Street. Pearl Street was the worst.
Holyoke has so many decrepit, you know, condemned buildings with firemen X's on it saying don't come in here, especially down the flats. And I'm pretty sure Eric Sewer owns some of them. He's one of the landlords. Um,
Yeah, he owns stuff in Holyoke too for sure.
it's from. I'm pretty sure that's where his
He
family.
is, yeah.
I've known people that work for him when he had his sporting goods store. I think he still owns it. Like, I feel like again, there's not a lot of information about this man on the internet. Like he has no social media. He's kind of a mystery in a lot of ways. All we have is court filings, companies in his name, and word of mouth. So, you know, everybody who's listening to this probably has a story via word of mouth. So everybody is always like, take that stuff with a grain of salt. Like, it's not about the reality is if you look at the legal documents and the stuff that's documented, it's not good. It's just not good. There's
Yeah.
no way around it, and it's hurting our economy, and it's really disappointing because there is a lot of vibrancy in the art here, and if he's specifically hurting the entertainment, you know that affects the artists all over. You can't even do art galleries because the fucking rent is too high. Like
Well, that's the problem. Like he kind of like boxes people
have
out.
would be great to have like pop-up art venues in these empty spaces, and people that would come all over the place, and it would do really well. And that's just one idea spitballing. You know, I'm just thinking Main Street, Northampton.
No, Spence, that's a great idea. Like when I lived in the Berkshires, there was a wealthy wife and husband, and they owned a good portion of North Street and were part owners of a prominent hotel that is on North Street in Pittsfield. And at the time, they would definitely give like breaks on rent to artists or groups of artists that wanted to do pop ups and things like that. And I actually used to work with artists there when I lived there after grad school because they didn't, because of what you basically said, like they didn't want the space to remain empty. They could afford to give them a break. And like it was better to generate like just people coming downtown. So he definitely could do that. It's just a matter of wanting to. If he can afford to, I don't know.
He has a monopoly of real estate.
Yeah, I mean, if you can afford to give up something,
That's why I'm just like it's just incompetence. It's like Elon Musk on Twitter. It's just incompetence, and that sucks. Sucks really hard. And this is the problem with our system because you can be a buffoon and do harm, real harm. And a sign of a thriving culture, society is arts, music, and that is a good sign of a healthy, thriving society. Because that means people have time, their basic needs are met, and they have time to expand horizons, challenge status quo, create new things, which lead to new innovations. And without, it's just a sign of the times that these things are literally not affordable for anybody, and let alone the working class, the middle class. This is where the middle class would go to
mm-hmm.
get, you know, they're not going all the way to Boston or New York City, but you could make it to Northampton, and now that's all dead. Now, all in the name of the mighty dollar, because I got to get every penny of the worth of the building, or else I would rather lose money.
It's,
Like make it make sense. It's dumb. It's dumbfounding, and you know, and we talked about a bunch of people that are complicit, and I want to talk about this is a transition to how the media is complicit. Like scrolling through Twitter this weekend, Joy and I were talking offline. Like I was just scrolling through Mass Live and WWLP News, the most mainstream local news journalism. And basically, it's either an advertisement for a promotion at Wendy's, as guised as a news article or a news blurb, or like random person gets DUI, found with unloaded pistol in car, intoxicated, and it's like that's bad. And I guess like that's not a good thing. Like somebody was out drinking, but again, like I don't feel good about assigning morality to that. Like we also live in a country where guns are everywhere and drinking is everywhere, so this doesn't make any sense. Why we penalize it so publicly? And he's accused. He's not convicted. So why is airspace being spent to this, but not Eric Suher? That's just food for thought for everybody at home. And and something funny. We're gonna share it. I've shared it on Twitter already, but we'll link it in our show notes. WWLP, no, it was Mass Live News did an article about like why the sunsets are pink, and they had a nice, beautiful photo of a sunset as like the thumbnail on the article with a cop car in the foreground. Their stock photos they have of beautiful sunsets also have a cop. It was just another way to shoehorn in cops because they probably pulled it from a cop's social media feed. So then it becomes a way to boost that social media feed. I'm not, again, not a big conspiracy. It's very logical. Money shaking hands with money, right? And the cops protect that. But it's like we can't even have a fucking sunset without a cop car in the way. That's where we are at in our news journalism coverage. And they were probably I didn't even read past it because I was so enraged by the thumbnail. Like this is bad. This is not what I normally will read it, but like I was just so enraged by it. They could have been like, and this is why climate change is bad because now our sunsets are pink from the I don't know, like, but of course they just had all I saw was cop and went red. That's just my truth, everybody. And yeah, this is what our local news deems appropriate. Yeah, nobody. Apparently, we're in the last 6 months, you and I are the only ones to cover Holyoke City Council. It's pretty open market there for us. So if anybody likes the city council stuff, I mean, we're gonna keep doing it because it's the gift that keeps on giving. But again, like WWLP and Mass Live News could be down there reporting on it.
Absolutely. Like we saw one Mass Live tweet. What was that one where it was like basically an ad for the most expensive house in the state that sold recently or something? And it's just like, this isn't even news. I will say if it's independent local news, totally no ragging on them. But these two specifically, Mass Live and WWLP, at this point, we rag on them so hard on Twitter. Like if you're not on Twitter or you are on Twitter, please come help us and just follow along. But Spence is usually the best at it. But I just don't understand.
If they each tweet 10 times a day on their intervals, because it's all done on like on
I'm sure it's like set up to just auto. Yeah.
they have like their things they have their post times every day, and it's like by social flow or whatever app they use, right? Say they do it 10 times a day, WWLP. 6 to 7 of those things are cop related.
Yeah.
And they may not even really be cop related. They'll be like, man dies, EMTs pronounced dead according to the police. It's just like they have to quote the police no matter what. It's just bananas, and this is the social conditioning. And the people working at WWLP, this is because they're probably strapped for resources and they're corporate overlords. They're like, you gotta push out 10 blogs a day, and it's got. I don't care if it's actual news. And so it's like, of course they got emails to all the PR teams of every police station in their jurisdiction, their area, and they're just hitting them up every day. Hey, you got anything for me? Yeah, we bagged a dude for DUI. We just ruined his life for the next 6 years, and then they punch down, and then they never follow up if the guy was actually convicted or not, unless a kid dies or something extreme. And I'm not saying, hey, you should be driving drunk. It's really irresponsible, and you should be held accountable to your community because you shouldn't be doing things that endanger yourself and others. It's just we need to find a way around that. But can we like invest in public, can we have a cab service for drunk people? I don't know. Also, like, alcohol is literally fucking everywhere in this country. It's fucking everywhere. Just like the gun thing. It's everywhere. Of course we're going to have people fucking doing stupid shit with alcohol and guns. Like, it's so normalized.
It's almost like you're weird if you don't drink, which sucks. Like, I feel like there's that thing too. Like, people who have had a problem or who don't drink anymore, it's like, oh, which I know I'd maybe even do it because I do drink once in a while, but like I feel like it's so socially ingrained.
Or even the gun thing.
Yeah, no, that is too. But I think the alcohol thing is like really there too.
Gun thing too, because not everybody owns guns, right? Not everybody has a problem with guns if they own them or not. Some may have them and be like, yeah, they're dangerous and understand what they are, right? The rare outside group is the never people. No one should have a gun. That is so minuscule of a population in our country, and that's the center left. The leftists are all about guns. The people far right are all about guns, and then the normies somewhere in the middle are like, there's so many guns everywhere. It's part of our culture. You can't really get away from it. So I don't care if people have guns. And then you have a small group of people that are anti-gun, virulently anti-gun, but it's very small. Same thing with alcohol. It's a very small group. Everybody, it's so normalized everywhere else. And marijuana's going that way, in my opinion.
Which it
It's,
should. It's like less bad for you.
and again, like, should we be arguing more about what's safer to drive on? No.
I'm not even arguing driving. I just mean like,
I'm saying people love to go to that argument, and no, that's not. This is
yeah.
our take for the day on weed culture and purity culture, and this all goes back to Christian theology. This all goes back to freaking Constantine in the Roman Empire. I know this is like some pothead, rambling conspiracy, but it's like because Christianity is about strongman,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it's about a scary man in the sky you can't see, and everything is set up as a temptation everywhere, and you're gonna fail, but you might if you can just fail just little enough, and he'll big sky daddy will take care of it. And not to knock anybody that gets good things out of this spirituality, that's fucking great. But like it does, there is something to be. We have to be honest about the strongman shit. And this is how it all gets enabled. These people within the media, the journalism, priests enabling this strongman thing, because then it also gives us an excuse to explain bad behavior away. There are a whole bunch of people that helped Hitler, a whole bunch of people that helped the Red Scare in the United States. It wasn't just Johnson from Wisconsin.
Yeah, like none of these people at that level, including someone like Suher, like we said, has done this alone. Like they're not, there's others, there are people involved. It's either a norm.
State agents. Like, think about it. How apropos of one of the most corrupt people in our American culture ever that we know of is Donald Trump. And what's he? A real estate person. Like,
Yeah.
the theory is he is laundering money through real estate. So, I mean, there is a reason to believe somebody like Eric Suher would be doing the same because there's no explanation to why he's doing what he's doing with these properties and then also hurting the community. There's got to be a benefit for him.
Yeah. And just to have that much.
And at the end of the day, people, it doesn't matter
Right.
because he's only one person. Fuck him. He'll be dead someday, whether tomorrow or in 60 years. He isn't our problem. It's important to acknowledge antisocial behavior and check yourself when you see yourself doing the same behaviors. But that's all we can really do. But it's important for y'all to know what's happening. And just for funsies, do what I do. Follow WWLP and Mass Live on Facebook and Twitter, and you'll see how often they carry the cops' water. The cops are carrying Eric Suher's water? They're one of the entities, anyways, and they don't even know it. It's just because they have mutual interests aligned. It's not a big conspiracy.
No, it's definitely not a conspiracy.
Well, I'm glad you're with me. Hope I didn't go too off the rails there, but we're it's hard once you unsee the matrix or unplugged or whatever you want to call it. You read about Eric Suher and you're like, how is this different than Donald Trump, or how is this different than I don't know, Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie back in the day. Like, how is this any different? This is just, and like, they're not master planners. That's giving them too much credit. Like, cops, they're not master planners. They have advantages over the regular people. They just have systemic advantage. They can suppress things. They can make the evidence go away. They can make up evidence. I'm not accusing anybody of doing that, but they could if they wanted to, right? Like
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are cases,
famous ones, even in Western Mass.
right?
Like, you know, it's not the police per se, but it's police oversight issues with the drug lab issue in Western Mass. You know, that's an oversight issue. The judicial and the legislator and the executive branch all fucked up. They were cheap and they only contracted out. I'm off tangent a little bit, but they only contracted to one drug company that became corrupted on its internal, and it was just a bad legislation, bad follow through, and nobody wanted to take accountability, and it created a whole shitstorm of people going to jail. It didn't necessarily have to go to jail, or vice versa. People that were got people off on technicalities, and I'm good for them. But like, you know, the point is, we spent all this money, and they fumbled it. The
Well,
government.
yeah.
They fumbled it epically, ruined many lives, careers, families, and it's just a whoopsie daisy.
Oh, like even though it's a tangent, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's like How to Fix a Drug Scandal. It's like a documentary miniseries about the whole thing. It's upsetting enough to read about that it happened, but this is again like how our systems are often set up to basically just be crazy and like
All
I
my
30,000 lives were impacted basically by it.
me friends that think I've gone off the deep end in my life, right? If any in any capacity, I know y'all love me, but like there was a man that just got found not guilty in Eastern Massachusetts today in 1 hour long court for murder, attempted murder. He was in pretrial detention for 7 fucking years.
Oh no.
I don't want to hear anything from anybody about Massachusetts being a progressive place. We're not. It's a
No.
lie. Lie. It's a lie. Eric Suher is here. Our AG, who is now governor, has done nothing about people like him. They don't care. It's a lie. We're not progressive. We spend more money on police than most any other place. We have decent jobs compared to other states. We have decent infrastructure. That's why our crime rates aren't that bad compared to name your shitty place for crime rates. And what are crime rates? And we've talked about that in previous episodes. Like that data, it's like we can't trust it anyway. It's not peer reviewed. None of this data is legit anyways. So it's all manufactured to create consent culture for us to give money to money laundering with guns, essentially. You know, the government is buying lots of weapons for our police, for our military, and then giving us reasons to have them buy it, so we buy it for them, and then that trickles down. They get old, they get stolen, they get lost. The guns they confiscate through civil asset forfeiture, whether legal or illegal. Who knows where those guns fucking end up half the time? Every jurisdiction has different rules, if they have any rules. And all this stuff happens in quote unquote progressive Massachusetts. So just remember that next time you say you think you're safe here. We're not. This country's always been a fascist state. And it's a real bummer to say it out loud, but it is what it is. And this is how it works. That's why we are here to help you weed out the ghouls and weed out the nonsense.
Yeah, and to people who would bristle at what Spencer is saying, because I have friends that would get upset. Two, because we do have it better in our state than many other parts of the country. Having it better doesn't mean it's progressive. Like in the United States of America, in my opinion, like we're basically center. Our left, like in government at least, like we don't really have a left part of the government. And Massachusetts is very moderate. I'll give us that. But we have pockets of very right, especially up near in Franklin County where I live, down in Hampden County, out by Boston. They're all over pockets of people who are very right wing or literally actually like affiliated with groups that are terrible. Like they're here in Massachusetts as well. And like you mentioned,
Nazis in South Boston, NSC.
oh yeah, Boston has stuff happening all the time.
That's what they said. They're white nationalists, Irish pride, keep Boston Irish. These Nazis are in Boston.
Right. But I do want to acknowledge though, like for the people out there who say like mass is better for some things, that's true. We have good education, we have certain things. But just because we're better off doesn't mean that it's still acceptable.
We're setting the example.
Yeah, we need to still be pushing for better.
So if this is the best, where's the median gonna be?
Right.
Where's the worst gonna be? That's the question. Cool, we're the best, and it's not great, and it's really expensive to live here. It's really inefficient. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of it's Massachusetts is, in my opinion, a lot like our federal government. There's a lot of shit that don't make no sense anymore. And
I mean, every state I would say that about, including, like you just said, our federal government.
states that have issues with not being sophisticated, being too simple. Like, like Nebraska, North Dakota, like they're so bare bones.
Well, and that's population based, I think.
It's hard for a country to be equitable when everything is so different. And what is we all define equity and liberty as different things. I can say this: the one thing that can solidify us against authoritarian fascists is we can all think liberty is different for everybody, but they think you exercising your liberty is an affront to their liberty. That's the problem with the fascist types, the conservatives, the let's go back and make America great again. They're mad that you're existing in your true self.
Yes. Like when I see those flags, I'm scared. So I can only imagine others.
I may not see liberty the same as somebody else. As long as their liberty doesn't deny mine or somebody else's, have at it, Haas. Go right ahead, do your thing. Don't give a fuck. I get to do my thing. I'm not hurting nobody. Everybody's consenting. Yada yada yada. All good, right? The people we got to worry about are the people that can't be flexible. That can't just like if you're living your best life, you're living your liberty, whatever your liberty is, as long as it's not infringing on somebody else's liberty, is offensive to them. It's offensive to their liberty somehow. It's really a self-fulfilling circle. They pull people right, or you know they if you normalize talking to those types of people, those types of logics, you normalize engaging that, and you don't call it out. You're having dinner with a Nazi.
Yeah, like I don't think either of us could do that.
It's hard, but everybody does. You need to keep in mind that everybody does want peace and security, and how can we convince people that are so different from us to chill out? That's a hard question.
It's true. And I go back to our talks about data and what you said, like, what does safety mean? So shame on WWLP or Mass Live or any news.
Sure.
Yeah, like anyone who would take a PR, because some police stations actually have PR parts, like components where they're just sending out the stupid press releases with all this nonsense too. And then these news syndicates are just like regurgitating word for word what they've been sent. So I do think we all have to just think like sometimes
Y'all,
like crime is not up. Like that's not the case.
crime's not up, and the New York Times is admitting to it now.
Finally, finally.
They're like, all these people were saying that there was crime was up, and they voted accordingly, and crime actually is up. Who said it? It's like you guys did.
Yeah. I mean,
So
most of the media did.
WWOP, like they may have somewhat of an excuse being low budget, like not a huge market. It's not an excuse, but so you shouldn't be in business if you can't do it properly. Don't do it. But the New York Times, man, like they are so apparent. And they have a lot of sway. People fucking my bosses love the New York Times. They think it's fair, even handed,
Yeah.
and
Mm-mm.
or not, it doesn't matter. That's the perception. So them dabbling in that stuff is dangerous, and it's how fascist, it's how Hitler rose to power, and it's playing on people's fear. And we also see it with our local media and our Uncle Frank on Facebook, um, it- which is just pathetic, bro. Um, that's my shade for Uncle Frank. So yeah, I mean, the good thing is we're keeping an eye on it. You should keep an eye on it. The listener, that is. This is our weekly reminder. Please check out our website. Follow us on all the socials. Please subscribe to our Patreon if you're feeling so inclined. We appreciate all the listens, as always. If you haven't left any feedback on any of our platforms, it would be great. We always love hearing feedback. We have some really exciting stuff coming down the pike. Thanks for joining us today in our discussion about, local ghouls, specifically Eric Suher. And I'm sure he's not I brought him up in the past, and I'm sure that he's not the last time he'll come up. Um, I don't know, John, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I guess I would just like to say thank you everyone for listening. I look forward to the stuff we do have coming because it'll be, I think, really interesting and exciting. That's about it. Take care, everybody.
Have a great day.